I like to consider Trey as being the original drummer of Greenday. You know, I think we went.
Yeah, we didn't really become Greenday until we started really gelling with Trey as a three-piece and as a band. We were never really a band. We were three guys playing together. Then when Trey joined, we became a band.
I just thought these guys were great. You know, I always we were playing shows together, and like I was in a different band, and I was like, those guys can write songs. You know, those guys can fucking sing.
Me and Mike met each other in we were 10 years old in the 5th grade, and then we just we're both kind of had the same interest in music, and you know, and goofing off and being class clown at the same time. So, yeah.
You just played together over the course of, you kind of learned how to play together in a lot of ways too. One thing led to another. Once, you know, eventually we ended up getting into punk rock music and in a band at the same time. All the other kids were playing, you know, baseball and football and doing just normal kid stuff, and I don't know, you know, our parents were always gone, so we had our guitars, and that was something we thought was really cool, and it's just kind of where our focus went. And there was a lot of rebellion in there too, and I got into a lot of trouble that I never got caught for.
I ended up getting married and having a kid really young, and then my band was taking off at the same time. Like you said, it was like, you know, we started Lollapalooza and we were this big, and then by the time we were done with Lollapalooza, we were this big, and that was a month. You know, we weren't. That's not a lot of time, and so you know, I mean, it was you know, a really scary time, but you know, really exciting at the same time. You know, I would never. I have no regrets.
It was great being the first band at Lollapalooza and outselling all the other bands combined. But then being playing first, that was kind of interesting.
Oh, I think we were swept away by beer for a while.
Well, I think if we just like kind of kept the core of remember what the catalyst of why we want to do this, you know, that's what was really, you know, important, was to, you know, not get selfish and recognize that we're all three individuals, but we're all three individuals coming together for the same reason, and to play music, and to have that respect for each other too, because I think a lot of bands, you know, they just get carried away with you know, believing their own hype or their own persona, you know, and you know, I mean, we always definitely make sure that we humiliate each other every once in a while to make sure that we keep each other in check.
We wanted to put a record out really fast, and we're, you know, wanted to keep in that tradition of putting out records in a fairly short amount of time, and we're pretty pissed off at that point. There's a lot that happened to us and everything. It was really a reaction, you know, to everything that catalyzed.
I just try to dig deeper into what my own frustration and my own complications. You know, I kind of like consider that sort of like our almost like our heavy metal years or something. Yeah, it's we just like, you know, I mean, it's like that's where we were at that certain point. You know, I mean, you know, I mean, it was just like I think things seemed to be a bit more bleak than they actually were. You know, looking back on it, I think I wish I would have enjoyed myself a little bit more. You know, like I said, I have no regrets, and you know, Insomniac is a good record. You know, it's like we came up with songs like Geek Stink Breath and Brain Stew, you know, and which just kind of ended up, you know, being part of like our own evolution.
We were working really, really hard, but we didn't look at it as work, because we were, you know, not just an education, but we were seeing the world. We were traveling, driving our own van back and forth across the United States and Canada, traveling here in the winter of '91 and playing 64 shows all across Europe, and squats and everything. I mean, that's an education, and you can't describe the smell of a place to somebody.
Work was the shit you did before tour to enable you to go on tour.
Yeah.
We're gonna work really hard not to work.
Yeah. You can either work hard to pay rent, or you can work hard to put money into a van that you can call home.
Every time that we went on tour, the shows ended up getting bigger and bigger, and it started getting to a point where we were selling more tickets than we were records, you know, and so, you know, and then we just had that's when we had to start sort of looking at, like, you know, our options as far as, you know, I mean, you know, how far can we take this, and, you know, I mean, we have this opportunity to really, to like live off this band and be able to play music for the rest of our lives. So, you know, we were like about 21 years old, and you know, that's when we pretty much ended up signing. After Kapung, we ended up signing to Reprise Records. One day we were screwing around the studio. I mean, we are all the way from the studio. Mike wrote a 30-second song, and it had like this sort of bombastic vaudeville kind of thing. It was just really, and it was really funny and fun. And I was like, oh my God, it almost sounds like a part of a rock opera or something like that. And so then I wrote a 30-second piece after that. Then Trey wrote a 30-second piece, and we kept like connecting it, you know, because of technology, you're able to do things like that nowadays. So we just kind of kept going. And that song, you know, this arc just started to happen where it was like it turned into, and actually is the song Homecoming. That's the last 10-minute thing. And, you know, we were just laughing and we were having a great time, and, you know, it was like, this is what we should be doing, you know, this is what's making us feel good. It's not like, I think at that point too, we were just like, if we have to go out and write a batch of songs and try to pick a single and go through the rules of being in a rock band, you know, it's like, you know, I look at bands like more like Outkast and Eminem as being more of an influence nowadays because it's just like, you know, there's so much ambition that's going on in the music, and that's where I think rock and roll needs to sort of turn the corner and come back to. I'm not worried about how anybody's going to react. I mean, so far the reaction's been great. You know, it's like the people that have heard it are like, you know, have been like the, you know, really, really like the record, and I don't know. I feel really confident that like people are gonna, as soon as they hear it, they're gonna be like, wow, this, you know, this is Greenday, you know, and it's maximum Greenday.
It's a very independent label, and he wasn't a get-rich-quick scheme on anyone's part. It's just like, hey, we're gonna put your records out, and you guys can actually go out on tours and get your stuff out there. And it was more like a co-op or a socialist thing.
Yeah, it was a long time there was no distribution beyond like the Bay Area, really.
Yeah, we'll make records and you can take them with you in a van and go on tour.
Yeah. I mean, Lookout is the ultimate example of word of mouth. You know, like it's really just start. You know, it's and the thing that was so great about it is that Lookout was it wasn't just about putting out a record. It was putting out several records by several bands that were, you know, part of the scene, and it's such an underdog. It's sort of label. It never really gets like, you know, like a lot of the New York bands and LA bands get their just desserts, but you know, I think Lookout, there's a lot to be said for what they did with punk rock, you know. And a song like American Idiot is sort of based on, I mean, that's me being confused about what it's like to be an American and what patriotism is, because, you know, it's like, you know, the American patriotism is much different than let's say, like, you know, Ireland, just because America's got this stigma that it walks around with it saying, you know, we're number one, we're the greatest country in the world, and it's just, there's no such thing as the greatest country in the world, you know, and that's where you get like, you know, and it's like, but you get these sort of rednecks that are, you know, or like or you have this representative of your country, your president, that goes around acting like a bad tourist, you know, and even worse than that, it's like, you know, it's, you know, and the war and everything on top of that, and that, for me, that doesn't represent who I am or what you know, it's like, I'm just, you know, I'm a guy in a band, I'm an artist, and, you know, it's like, I don't want to be represented by some redneck from Texas. I mean, people in the media, they're supposed to be the checks and balances of every country. It's like rock and roll is supposed to be about, you know, rebellion and being dangerous. You know, I'm a firm believer in the Church of Rock and Roll, and that's what, you know, and that's what the rules are. That's what it is. You know, it's the lack of them. You know, so, you know, that's where, you know, that's what we want to challenge people, and we, you know, it's like if people get a bit resentful or they're, you know, pissed off, and
then we're doing our job.
Then we're doing our job.
At the time, it was a decision that we had to make. I mean, it was either that or kind of quit and go get jobs, you know, flipping burgers, which is all fine and dandy, but it's not what we want to do. And we, you know, I think we got it was difficult for us. It was, you know, it's kind of like leaving home again. But, you know, when we look at a lot of our you know, our heroes records and stuff like that, they were all on major labels too. And so you kind of have to balance the two and make a decision. You know, I would rather, fear of failure is the biggest impedance of success, I think, and I would rather die trying.
We're always having band practice all the time, so by the time, you know, we were signing to Reprise, I think, you know, we knew what we wanted to sound like already, and we had years of experience, and then we were like, we had this song, we knew what we wanted to sound like, and so we had the majority of our album written even before we signed the papers. I just I feel like I was just being a spokesperson for myself, and
He said a very loud voice.
yeah, I mean, just try to write the songs that are meaningful to me and talk about my life, and it's like, and if there's other people that may feel disenfranchised that sort of recognize that, then that's cool.
I think of it more as like a photograph of that time of Billy's life and that time of all of our lives, really.
Mm-hmm.
It's a picture in time, and that's worth 1,000 words.
Well, we were already kind of in a band, so it was kind of happening at the same time that we started a band. Gilman was happening, so we ended up, it was just a perfect place to play because we were, 15 years old, and it was an all ages place. So it was where we could really just kind of hone our skills and have a good time and meet cool people. Most of the bands that we were first inspired by, I think, were the local bands that we were from. We loved like all the, we loved like the Clash and the Pistols and Dead Kennedys and bands like that were older than us. But at that point, those bands were over. I mean, our sort of heroes weren't really happening anymore. So and punk rock was sort of looked down upon as being dead or whatever. So for us, I mean, and being at Gilman Street, it was like, the new heroes were sort of coming out, which was like, for us, was like a band like Operation Ivy or Crimp Shrine, which was, we were really involved, and we really come from a strong local scene. Yeah. So and that's what I love about being in a band, is that there's you get influenced by your peers too.